All right, hey coaches, how you guys doing? This is another CoachTube video, part of the coaching competency videos. For this particular topic, I wanted to kind of bring Andrea along, and also she invited me. She was like, oh, we gotta do this topic together. And I was like, okay, awesome, let's make it happen. This is actually the most important part, because the whole point of what we do with our students is to help them become self-directed learners. And in another word, you can also hear a lot of times people say, oh, helping students become, building their self-efficacy. And we leverage that in terms of how we build our relationship with them, because that's actually the goal outside of everything else that they have to do. As coaches, we're helping them become self-directed learners. So how do you leverage that in terms of how you build a relationship? I'm going to pass it over to Andrea, and she's going to talk about it a little bit.
All right, thanks, Deo. So the first thing I would say that comes to mind when you're trying to promote a student as a self-directed learner would be to resist the urge to solve the problem for them or to give them the answer. And sometimes that is appropriate. There is some information that you can't assume that they should know, but we're looking at trying to show them where the information is and where the answers are and what resources they have available to them so that they can get their needs met. So I guess that'd be the first step. Is I think as coaches we want to be helpers. And so when someone has a problem, we want to fix the problem, or we want to be that solution and be there for them. And so when we're thinking about promoting self-directed learning, it's actually resisting that initial urge and knowing that the best help you can do is to help them help themselves and show them what resources they have available to do that.
And you can still present it in a way where the students don't feel like, oh, well then what's the coach's role if they can't even answer this question? As you build the relationship with them, you can leverage that, especially early on when you're getting to know them. You can say, hey, this is what we're going to work toward. How do you want it to look like? So you've already set the foundation of what the relationship is going to be like, and then as you execute the support, then it's nothing new to them, because they know, okay, the coach is going to refer, or the coach is going to suggest or recommend. I need to pick and choose what I think will work better. I've had some students that have kind of resisted it right from the beginning in kind of a challenging way, but over time I've developed this skill, and I have ways where I can hold my ground, still be very coachy, but at the same time really helping the students become self-directed learners, especially over time. The more they pick up their patterns, the more competencies that they're mastering, the more you want them to begin to take ownership of what that success looks like.
Okay, so Deo, could you give some examples about how you've promoted some self-directed learning in your students?
Yeah, this actually, I have a ton of these examples, but I would say one of my students that we started working with, early on I was very hands-on in terms of, hey, how's this going, or how's that going, and it was working very well for her. And then I realized that we were on the second term, and she kind of had that expectation of the same support from me, which I had no problem with, but she was actually mastering a lot of competencies. So in my head I was like, I kind of have to step back a little bit so she can take ownership of this. So we had the conversation, and I asked her, I was like, hey, you're doing an amazing job. What would it look like if we don't connect on a weekly basis? Or what would it look like if we don't do the reminder? And she was like, oh, you know what? I actually feel very confident that I'll still be able to make it happen. I didn't pull back drastically, We went from every other week, and then before you know it, we went from every 3 weeks. Even in my head, my urgency was like, oh no, I want to continue to connect with her on a weekly basis, because for some reason, I felt like, oh, maybe, the coaching support is actually contributing, but it was also time for her to take that ownership of what success was going to look like, because she's already been experiencing it. All the hard work that she was putting in came from her. So over time, we moved from every other week, and before you knew it, we connect, on the phone maybe twice a month, depending on what's going on, and she's still on pace to graduate in less than 2 years, actually. So I think it's important as a coach to find that balance. You don't want to pull back too quick, but at the same time, you want to make sure that the way that you're interacting with the students, the support that you're providing, is allowing them to become self-directed. What about you, Andrea? Do you have any example on your end?
Yes, I was thinking of a student who came to me really stressed out about whether or not she was ready to submit her work, and she said, I don't know if this is what they're looking for, and I don't feel like I'm ready to submit it because I don't know if my work is ready. And what resisting the urge required is kind of, instead of going to, well, I think you look ready, you know, that puts a lot on me, you know, if she gets a not yet and I said it looked pretty good, that's no good, you know. And in wanting to promote her own, you know, self-directed skills, I said, well, let's figure out a process that you can go through so that you know when you're ready to submit your work, because I'm not going to be sitting next to you every time you're ready to submit a project to be able to say, yep, that looks good. So what resources do you have at your fingertips that could guide you on that, and that you can feel good about, okay, as best as I can tell, I think this is ready to submit. So some of the resources that she identified were the rubric that's on the project page and kind of comparing that to some of the directions as well. And she also came up with the idea of having one of her accountability partners at work look over it as well to see if it felt on track from a student perspective as well. And it worked out great, because then she had a process that she could go when she reached the point of, I don't know, am I ready or do I need to keep working? She would go through this process, and if she could kind of check off all the boxes, she would just submit it for feedback.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Andrea. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to connect with your team lead and look through all the resources that the coaching department has around this. Thank you so much.